Okay, Mary, we're about to go live on YouTube.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. So welcome to our webinar on RAE 2020 research analysis. So let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Mary Ho, and I'm an impact specialist from Vertical Ventures. And today we're mainly, of course, for this webinar, I'll be just sharing our research that we've been actually working with our within our company, as well as, of course, our networks in Hong Kong, to actually share with you some of the analysis we've done in the last 9 months. So just very briefly, let me just talk about, of course, why we are doing this research for in terms of the RAE 2020 results. There are two main reasons that we did this research, and we want to, of course, share with you today a glimpse of our analysis, mainly because first, we want to help all universities in Hong Kong to actually understand more about the key elements of bringing their faculties or academics research to world-leading and internationally excellent level, which will, of course, aid their decisions on allocating appropriate resources to each academic in an advanced and efficient manner. And the second reason is, of course, to provide insights to universities and academics who are working towards the next RAE, which is proposed to be in year 2026. Now, before we actually deep dive into our analysis for RAE 2020, mainly, of course, on the research impact, I would like to here just take a few minutes to introduce who we are as Vertical Ventures. So in terms of, who we are as Vertical Ventures, we are actually impact experts with over 10 years of experience in the field. We are also, of course, official advisor to the Times Higher Education Impact Rankings, having conceptualized the idea and been the methodology partner since the inception. We have actually, over 10 years of experience in developing the taxonomy that underpins our software today, the Impact Tracker, and also, of course, it is this taxonomy that we've built in the last 10 years that feeds into the methodologies and the matrix used for the Times Higher Education Impact Rankings as well. The map on the slide, of course, shows the geographical reach of our proprietary software Impact Tracker, and also, of course, our new free-to-access collaboration platform, the trackimpact.org. Some of the key countries and territories that we actually work in are the United Kingdom, Australia, and also Hong Kong. But in the last few years, we have actually seen other countries beginning to bring into similar research assessment exercise, such as, of course, Nordic countries, and also, of course, developing countries like the South Africa as well. So we do see, of course, this field in the higher education to be actually growing quite rapidly. And also, of course, just to, we have actually condensed our offering into what we refer to as the VV impact ecosystem. So as you can see here on the slides, this is the, our Vertical Ventures impact ecosystem, which comprises of several elements from Impact Academy to our proprietary software Impact Tracker, as well as, of course, our new free collaboration research and collaboration platform, the Track Impact. So let's go back to the research then. In this webinar today, we're going to, and also, of course, our full report, which will be released tomorrow on August 18th. We are mainly, of course, focusing on the RAE 2020 results, which were released last May. And in our analysis or our report, we are mainly focusing on these four set of questions. First is what types of impact outcomes have been submitted and what pathway have been taken? What are the time lags between underpinning research and impact outcomes exampled in the impact case studies? Third is what quantitative data can be extracted and synthesized from the impact case studies. And the final question is, according to the impact case studies, what type of research user benefits from the research, and also to what extent. So how did we do our research? Obviously, the sources is mainly, of course, from the impact case studies that were submitted to the UGC by the 8 local universities in Hong Kong, but also, and so we also extracted all the case studies that were available publicly from the UGC official website. Our research mainly focused on impact case studies that actually received 4-star and 3-star ratings, which actually accounts for 70% of the total research projects that's been assessed in the RAE 2020. We decided to mainly focus on the 4 stars and 3 stars ratings because we believe that it serves as good examples for the academics and universities to understand what it takes to achieve these ratings in the next RAE by looking into, of course, the keywords used, the pathways built, the expected time range to develop research, and also, of course, what data and beneficiaries should be included. So for this report, for our research, we've basically identified 264 cases and has actually categorized them into 4-star and 3-star. While, of course, 59 cases were identified and categorized them into 2-star or below. Now, of these 264 cases that we look into, 19 of these impact case studies could not be automatically classified as the total submission of their as the total submission of their universities lay on both 4-star and 3-star and also 2-star or below. So what we did in terms of giving these 19 impact cases, what we did was we carefully reviewed them and then classified them whether they are 4-star and 3-star or 2-star or below, based on, of course, our research team's expertise and experience in the field. Here, allow me to just very briefly introduce what the a brief background of what RAE 2020 was about, because we also understand amongst our audience there are a few that are from Australia, New Zealand, and also other countries as well. So the RAE 2020 actually marks the 6th assessment of the research quality of all 8 UGC-funded universities in Hong Kong by using international benchmarks to delineate their areas of relative strength and make recommendations for further improvements. And each of these local universities was required to provide data on respective staff, research outputs, impact, and environment corresponding to respective units of assessment. For this round of assessment, was, of course, the first to include research impact, which included impact overview statements and also impact case studies showing research outputs, impact, and environment during the period from October 1st, 2013 to September 30th, 2019. Research impacts was mainly assessed it, of course, in terms of their reach and significance. And the UGC had actually defined it, reach and significance, as shown on the slides. This was extracted out from the UGC RAE 2020 guidelines. So, and of course, based on this definition, based on the generic assessment criteria, the judging panels assessed the reach and significance of impacts on the economy, society, and on culture that were underpinned by research conducted in or significantly supported by the submitting universities, as well as the submitting unit's approach to enabling impact from its research. And of course, based on the expert judgment, each impact case studies were then given a rating following the 5 categories as shown on this slide. So a 4-star, a impact case study that received it a 4-star ratings basically means that they have demonstrated outstanding impacts in terms of their reach and significance and so forth. The RAE 2020 results, as mentioned it previously, it was of course released it on last May, and the results from the UGC, focused it on the mainly, of course, showed it the percentage of each rating each university received it for each subject panel, for which it was submitted for which it has submitted case studies. And at Vertical Ventures, we actually tabulated all the scoring in the diagram as shown on this slide to highlight the overall percentage of each rating the 8 universities actually received it for in terms of their research impact. And we actually had this blog article published it in May last year. And if you're interested to actually, read our, preliminary analysis on the research impact of the 8 universities, you can, of course, visit our website, or my colleague is going to also share this blog article link in the chat as well. So let's go to let's go into our analysis in terms of the impact case studies that we've looked into. So the first research question that we focused it on was, of course, what types of impact outcomes have been submitted and what pathways have been actually taken. So to better understand the types of impact created by the research and the disciplines it spans, we have actually, for this research question, identified 8 broad impact types, which range from academic impact, economic impact, environment, health and welfare, to public policy, public services, society, culture, and creativity. And we also identified 15 impact levels for analysis. So the broad impact types, as shown on the left on the slide, actually covers the 3 pillars of sustainability, mainly to help us understand how research transfers innovative solutions and brings substantial benefits to economic viability, environmental protection, and social equity. And the impact levels actually helps us, the 15 impact levels, which range from, as you can see on the right, which range from collaborations and knowledge transfer to guidelines, policy, strategies, to knowledge and skills training, to products and interventions, to teaching, learning, and pedagogy. These actually would help us to understand the significance and the tangible change to stakeholders or the users or beneficiaries, as well as the activities that were used to create impacts. So on the right is the overall results of our analysis, looking at, of course, the impact outcomes and pathways across all 13 subject panels. And each bar basically illustrates the percentage of demonstrable contributions identified within an impact type by the given subject panel. So for example, in biology, which is of course the first panel at the top of the slide, nearly 60% of all the identified demonstrable contributions from all the impact case studies in this subject panels are related to health and welfare impact. So let me just very quickly go through some of the insights we have. We derived it from this first research question. So obviously there is a clear relationship between the impact type and the subject panel. In biology and also in the second subject panel, health sciences, topics are associated, topics which were mentioned in the impact case studies are associated with health and welfare impact, which of course, as I mentioned, for biology is nearly 60%, and for health sciences, it's actually nearly 80%. On the other hand, in electrical and electronic engineering, computer science and information technology, and in engineering, in these three subject panels, topics are associated mainly with economy, commerce, and organizations, which for all of them nearly, has close to approximately 60% of their, all demonstrated contributions is related to the economy. Another observations we actually were able to make is that in terms of public policy, public services, and law, this is actually the most common type. This is actually the most common impact type that was actually mentioned across 11 of the 13 subject panels. But this was actually less prevalent in biology and health sciences. Other interesting points that you can see actually from the results is, of course, there are three subject panels: the law, business and economics, and the social sciences are significantly associated with public policy, public services, and law. As you can see, 42% of the topics in the law are associated with public policy, public services. For business and economics, it's also 30%, and for social sciences, it's also 30%. Now, in order to actually assess further the impact activities within each impact type, we've actually also analyzed the distribution of UOAs within the 15 impact levels. And you'll be able to actually read the detailed analysis of each UOA from the full report. But for today's webinar, what we would like to do is to actually share some insights, from few of the UOAs. So the first one is actually UOA1, the biology. So of the five, so in this UOA, 5 case studies actually received 4-star and 3-star ratings, and we've actually able to identify, a total from the 5 case studies, a total of 21 impact activities were identified, and so it actually gives us an idea that, on average, each case study is actually able to, mentioned or describe at least 4.2 different impact levels or impact activities, and these impact activities were actually strongly associated with 3 main impact types, which is economy, commerce, and organizations, environment, and health and welfare. Now, on health and welfare impact, this UOA activities actually comes across a wide range of impact activities from, as you can see on the pie chart that's shown on this slide. These impact activities actually range from collaborations and knowledge transfer to health and quality of life, to guidelines, policy, strategies, and regulations, and also scientific and academic knowledge. The other impact type that this UOA also has a strong association with is the economy, commerce, and organization, and this is mainly because of the patent that is linked to the research from this UOA. So the activities, the impact activities mainly focused on on operation, process, and service delivery, which we found that 30% of the impact activities that were described was actually about operation, process, and service delivery of their users or beneficiaries, and also another 30% were actually related to products and or interventions. Another interesting UOA that we want to share with you here today is the chemistry UOA 9. In total, 10 case studies were 10 impact case studies were submitted from the local universities, and all 10 of them actually received a 4-star and 3-star rating in terms of their research impact. And I would say that UA 9 for any universities would be actually an exemplary UA when you are, of course, looking into trying to look into how what did they actually do to receive such high ratings of 4 stars and 3 stars, and what can other UOAs or academics actually learn from this UOA or from the academics of this department. So a mean score of 6 impact activities were identified per case study, with the high number of impact activities identified as 9 and the lowest being 5. It should also be noted that all the case studies contributed to 2 or more impact types, demonstrating that the field of study actually strengths in making beneficial effects across various disciplines. And the two and also the focus of this UOA's impact was mainly on economy, commerce, and organizations, environment, and also health and welfare. Now, among the 10 case studies of UOA 9, 7 of them actually demonstrated contributions in the economy, commerce, and organizations. The impact activities in this discipline included collaboration or knowledge transfer, which accounts for 25%, and also another 25% actually focused on products and or interventions. And this highlights the focus of the research field or this discipline in knowledge exchange, and also how the research actually leads to patent developments. On a side note, though, the UOA actually had a minor impact on academic esteem, teaching and learning practitioners, and also professional services and public policy, public services, and law. The third UOA that I would like to share is the UA 16, Civil Engineering and Building Technology. 10 case study, again, similar to chemistry, 10 case studies were submitted in this UOA from all the universities. Research from this UOA actually had demonstrable contributions across 5 of the 8 impact types. So as you can see here, 29% of all the demonstrable contributions from the 10 impact case studies focused on, talked about economic impact. 23% talked about, public policy, impact on public policies and public services and law. 90% on practitioners and professional services. 16 on environment. 9 on society, culture, and creativity, and 4 on international development. The other thing I want to mention about UA 16 is that 5 of the 10 case studies actually identified demonstrable contributions in the economy, commerce, and organizations. And among them, the identified impact activities, as shown on the right with the pie chart, 26% of these activities focused on making valuable changes in operations, process, and service delivery. 70% focused on creating beneficial effects in the natural world, and 13% focused on making valuable changes in the financial performance of their users or beneficiaries. The last UOA I want to talk about is actually UOA 20 accountancy. Now, once again, UOA 20 accountancy is very similar to UOA 9 chemistry because all of the impact case studies that were submitted by the universities received it 4-star and 3-star ratings. And again, this could be, this can for universities and academics, a exemplary UOA to look into, especially, of course, for the business schools across, the local universities as well. So what kind of findings that we're able to derive from UOA 20? So it is not surprising, of course, in this field of study, majority of the case studies actually mentioned the demonstrable contributions to the economy, commerce, and organization. A mean score of 6.5 impacts activities were identified per case studies, and all the and also illustrated on the right with the pie chart. As you can see, a wide variety of impact activities were adopted by the academics in this field of study. They involve both, of course, knowledge sharing and making valuable changes to their users and beneficiaries, management practices, and also products development. In addition, we also, of course, found 7 case studies that mentioned demonstrable contributions in practitioners and also professional services. So the focus here was on making valuable changes in guidelines and policy strategies and regulations, of course, in terms of the accounting professionals. It also has, 26% focus on enhancing knowledge, skills, and trainings, and another 26% focus on providing and sharing access to scientific and academic knowledge. So that's what we actually look at in terms of the first research question. So next, let's move on to the second research question, which is, of course, looking at what are the time lags between underpinning research and impact outcomes, exampled in the impact case studies. Now, here we are basically examining the time lags between the underpinning research and the realizations of the impact of the 4-star and 3-star impact case studies. What we did here was actually extracting the dates from the research, from the references to the research section, which is the underpinning research of the case studies in terms of the year with the RAE 2020 required scope during the period of January 1st, year 2000 to September 30th, 2019. The latest year of the realized impacts claimed in the cases were then extracted to form the N range in order to actually calculate the time lags, as the range of the RAE 2020 impact factor is between October 1st, 2019 and September 30th, 2019. Any impact realized the dates that actually falls out of this date range has been excluded in our calculation. So let's just show you the results here. So some highlights from the analysis in terms of this question is that it takes an estimated 7 to 19 years for research to have an impact on the targeted beneficiaries or users. For the average range, the UOAs that took the longest time for developed research to realize impacts within the allowable time window included UOA 4 clinical dentistry, which took 19 years, UOA 36 philosophy, it took them 16 and a half years, UOA 1 biological science, 15 years, and also UOA 37 religious studies, also 15 years. Now, this indicates basically that academics fall into these disciplines or UOAs can actually have to expect at least 15 years to develop impact case studies with potential of attaining 4-star and 3 star quality. In addition to, well, what the analysis from this research questions also actually tells us is that looking forward to RAE 2026, academics should already be starting to gather underpinning research and formulate the impacts of potential academics should already be starting to gather underpinning research and formulate the impacts of potential cases, given that it actually takes at least 7 years to attain 4-star and 3-star rating, let alone the specific UOAs that may actually take over a decade to develop. So it should be pointed out, however, each impact case study may vary in terms of their research context and nature, and the speed by which the impact occurs varies by disciplines. Therefore, academics should treat with considerable caution and adjust their preparation time accordingly. Now, what we also did in this for this research questions is that we also looked at the standard deviation of the UOAs with more than one 4-star or 3-star case studies. So by looking into the standard deviations, we can actually have a better understanding of how the time lags of cases in one UOA are either similar or less variable, or could be a total opposite. So from this analysis, we found that the range of standard deviation is between 2 and 5.96, meaning that no UOA actually has and also no UOA has a standard deviation lower than 1 or close to 0. So what does this actually means? It actually indicates that it actually indicates that the more cases the UOA has, the more likely for the time lags of the cases to spread out from the mean and vice versa. The calculations of standard deviation showing the dispersion of time lags of each case actually gives a clear reference to us in addition to the average time lag information as shown on the previous slide. It should actually serve as an anchor point for both us and the academics and universities, in that we should not only look at the average time lag, but also refer to the number of cases and the standard deviation to grasp the true inclination of the approximately how much time is expected to prepare a high quality impact case study. Now let's move on to the third research question that we are looking to, and this is, what quantitative data in terms of what quantitative data can be extracted and synthesized from the impact case studies. So here for this research question, we basically aim to see if the panels have any specific areas in which most case studies presents their quantitative impact evidence, and which types of evidence under these areas will place the particular emphasis on. And this will actually give academics a clear idea on what types of quantitative data they should prepare to bring their impact case studies to 4-star and 3-star level in the next RAE submission. So here again are the results from, are the analysis for this research question. It is actually interesting to see that for the natural science disciplines, such as biology and physical sciences, a large portion of the quantitative impact evidence goes to the economic aspects. This area actually includes secure investment, revenue created, enterprise and staff employment, cost reductions, and increased sales. What this actually tells us is that academics should not, of course, only focus on technological aspects in these disciplines, but also should try to widen the scope to the economic area, which they could actually be able to quantify. Understandably, the disciplines of computer science and engineering indeed also gave more quantitative focus on the technological area, such as patent licensing, technological applications, and improvements, while of course presenting their 4-star and 3-star impact case studies. It is also worth noting that the panel of business and economics, panel 9, has also a strong focus on social area instead of, presumably the economic area. And the social area includes media outreach, publications, public engagement, public welfare, and education. And another panel which also places a significant strong focus on social area is, of course, humanities. Now, the finding from this research questions, as you can see, is actually quite, remarkable, and it also would help will help academics and universities to, think about, what kind of, quantitative data they should actually try to gather, and the evidence to help them to build a high quality case. The other thing that we actually look at in this research question is also examining the qualitative data used in capturing impact. So by adopting content, thematic and textual analysis, patterns or repeated wordings, we examined it, if there were any recurring themes. We looked into common words and also phrases, and also quotations and excerpts from the section 4. Details of impacts of each impact case studies, as well in terms of their content, structure, and the design of the text. And one of the UA that we examined it in details was UA 32 translation. Now, here in one of the case studies, one of the impact case from UA 32, of course, received it a 4-star rating. And this case study, this 4-star impact case study from UA 32, discussed the improvement of medical interpreting services in Hong Kong. And in terms of its time lag, it took 14 years for this case to actually attain world-leading or internationally excellent impact. The main type of quantitative impact data it presented was, as shown here, an excerpt from the case study. As shown here is mainly, of course, looking into professional and practitioner impact. So here, the research team basically developed a model for medical interpreter training involving participants of diverse linguistic backgrounds, and established a professional body to enhance interpreting services. The qualified interpreters have actually worked in public hospitals on more than 10,000 occasions annually, facilitating provisions of healthcare, quality healthcare services, and saving lives. And from the section 4 details of impact of this case study, we can see actually various types of impact were presented throughout the descriptions or the details of the impact, as one shown here, this excerpt from section 4. This excerpt from section 4 basically demonstrate the uniqueness and the exclusive nature of the industry, of the one industry partner, strengthening, of course, the significance of the impact. So you can see here how, in terms of describing or capturing the impact, you don't really need we need hundreds of stakeholders or hundreds of beneficiaries. Even just one beneficiary or industrial partner can actually able to actually demonstrate the contributions your research have actually made. And here also, of course, from the same impact case study, another excerpt from section 4. Here it is, of course, the economic impact. The the case study have actually created, which includes, of course, enterprise and staff employment, revenue created, increased its sales, cost reductions as well. Again, this is, of course, a good example to express the situation before the impact happened, showing substantial improvements the case actually brought to the society, but also, of course, the industry as well. And you can see in the last sentence the concrete monetary figures that it has described it in the last sentence can actually create a realistic picture to the judging panels, or even to readers like us. And lastly here, following that paragraph from the previous slide here, again, this is, of course, this evidence basically shows the reductions in public costs, which can be, again, included as well. So it's not just about the positive impact, right? But also, of course, the reductions, the negative impact that you are able to mitigate as well. Finally, let's go to the last research question we looked at for this report. This is, of course, focused on what types of research users actually benefits from the research and to what extent. So we actually did kind of a data mining with data mining software, looking into keywords, stakeholders keywords, and we have then, of course, grouped them into 34 identified stakeholders groups. And this is, of course, just a word cloud of the most common stakeholders that were identified or that were mentioned across all of the 264 impact case studies we analyzed. As you can see, there is no clear stakeholders group that actually stood out from the 34 identified stakeholders groups. Companies and governments are obviously the two main stakeholders groups that were mentioned that was mentioned most by all impact case studies, with 16% and also 20% respectively. Now, this is, of course, not a surprising outcome, as most research in Hong Kong focused on knowledge transfer or collaborations, patents, and also policy making as well. In the full report, we did actually deep dive into each subject panel to trying to understand the research users and beneficiaries, and how the research not only focus on specific stakeholders groups, but actually wide scopes of stakeholders groups across various disciplines and industries as well. But due to time, we are not able to actually share that in details with you in today's webinar. So finally, let's allow me to actually share some insights and recommendations from our research and from our research report. So couple of just few notes. So one is, of course, there is no limit on the types of impact levels and evidence. While an impact case studies can actually falls under one subject panels, its potential impact and evidence to be collected should not be coveted by its disciplines, but actually at the disposal of its largest reach and significance. Second point I want to talk about is that, of course, following on the first point, is that academics should try to ensure that they include everyone who needs to be included in their research. While there might be specific stakeholders groups that must be included, they should also try to, brainstorm or, just look outside of their comfort zone or out of the box of all the possible beneficiaries and stakeholders groups who might need to be engaged according to their levels of interest and influence in their research projects. The third point is more of a kind of like a recommendation, is, of course, to plan ahead and have a roadmap describing the sequence of related activities connecting the research with its desired outcomes and impacts. As we all know, research is a long cycle process, and it can take 6 years or even longer to generate research outputs and engage with your stakeholder or the users and beneficiaries. While faculties and while academics are comfortable in planning resources, research activities, and the desired research outputs, they also need systematic thinking and planning for their research desired outcomes and impact. A logic model that allows them to adjust approaches, changes courses as activities plans are developed, and also allow the academics and beneficiaries to actually run through possible scenarios to understand the impact created is actually needed. And we strongly recommend all academics to actually to adopt the logic model approach. Because this will actually help to create a shared understanding of and focus on research goals and methodologies, relating activities to projected outcomes and impact. The last point we want to actually make here is, of course, building an impact culture within the UA or academic department is important. There is an urgency for all universities to actually build an impact culture, a community of academics who have the capacity to use their research to benefit the society, environment, and also their users and beneficiaries. Senior management in universities should try to provide resources and value impact and foster impact culture, taking care to consider, of course, both bottom-up and top-down approaches. Our final words in terms of looking forward to RAE 2026 is that academics should try to stay diligent to make even greater impacts with reach and significance, because this will actually take time to nurture and develop. So, I mean, obviously with the RAE 2020, from the experience, we know that there is no scoring rubrics being published, nor are there any similar, rubrics from other research assessment exercise around the world, whether it's in the United Kingdom or in Australia. But what we hope is that, from our sharing in today's webinar and also from the full report, which will be available tomorrow, can actually provide insights and map the way of what the judging panels may be actually looking for in future research assessment exercise. It is also hoped that our analysis will be of interest and formative influence to all variety of stakeholders related to the research impact, especially the RAE in Hong Kong, including the academics, impact case writers, assessors, and also, of course, the university management. So I'm going to stop here, and we still have some time for questions. So if you do have any questions, feel free to ask.
Thank you, Mary. If anyone has any questions, please use the Q&A functionality now, and Mary will answer that live. So, Mary, what was the biggest thing, biggest insight you learned from this project?
One of the biggest insights we've learned is, of course, I think the most important we've learned is from From question one and actually question two, the first and the second research questions that we've developed it, looking into, of course, the time lags, I think, it is important for academics to actually understand, from the RAE 2020 experience from their, colleagues or predecessors, how long it actually took them to, from underpinning research to actually create impact, or, their research has actually, benefits the users or stakeholders groups. And I think this gives a good picture to, colleagues or academics who is going to, submit impact case studies or write impact case studies for the next RAE, how much time they need to actually prepare. And so this is, of course, the most one of the most important insights. The other is, of course, what surprised us is, of course, the wide range of impact types, or the impacts that different disciplines have actually created, and it's not just focused within their own industry or field of study. And I think this is, of course, always positive about to actually understand how academic research actually are able to create impact in other disciplines and in other industries as well. I can see there are two questions that have been posted. So this is from this is from, I think, Christy. How is transdisciplinary, for example, of course, one UA joining several disciplines affects research impact collections and measurements? Thank you for your question, Christy. Of course, with the RAE 2020, we didn't actually look into if any of these impact case studies, especially the 4-star ratings and 3-star ratings, actually, involved it in any multidisciplinary research. But I do think that, by having multidisciplinary research will definitely help in terms of research impact collections and measurements, because it will allow the UAs or the impact case studies to actually demonstrate, again, the wide scope of field of studies or the industries and stakeholders they are able to actually create impact or benefits to. With RAE 2020, we were not able to actually see too much of multidisciplinary research, but I think, and we haven't actually got to that yet, is to actually analyze probably the REF 2021. Where, of course, we saw more multidisciplinary research amongst the case studies. But it's a good question, but unfortunately, we didn't really focus it on that here. But it would be actually a good, research probably for Vertical Ventures next round to actually look at, of course, from the REF 2021, the multidisciplinary research in terms of their impact case studies and how it actually affected the research impact collections and measurements, and do a comparison from REF 2021 to with ERA or even RAE 2020. Another question is, of course, from Nancy, is actually asking, has there been similar analysis on the impact case studies in UK and Australia? With REF 2014, of course, the King's College did have a similar analysis for REF 2014 in UK. So and you can simply you'll be able to actually find it. I think we also Actually, we at Vertical Ventures also did a similar study as well. I think probably Alex could also share the link on the chat as well. King's College also did a analysis on the impact case studies from REF 2014. With REF 2020, with REF 2021, at this moment, I don't think anyone has actually done a analysis on the second round of impact case studies. But as I say, this is probably something that for Vertical Ventures for us to actually look into in the coming months as well. Do you have the next? Nancy has actually another question. Do we have any insights to share on what the prominent features in productive impact pathways? Again, as as we mentioned, we strongly do recommend academics to actually follow the to actually take the logic model approach. As a half academic myself, and also been working with academics over the years with research assessment exercise, I found the logic model approach to be most simple, but also most useful for academics to actually understand and build their impact pathways by, of course, understanding, by looking into their underpinning research, to actually looking into what their research outputs are, and then from that looking into identifying their stakeholders, who their potential beneficiaries or users would be in terms of their research, and finally, of course, identifying impact activities, and also, of course, how to measure the outcomes of those impact activities. And I think the logic model approach is the most simple, but the most also because it's easy to understand, and it's also widely being used by different fields, not just in higher education, but also in terms of the business industry, the health sciences, and so forth. There's last question, I think, here is, let me just simply take a look. Sorry. In preparing impact case studies, the collections of evidence is one of the challenging tasks. To provide data, especially getting data from the governments, quasi-governments, any recommendations for local institutes. What we've realized is, of course, do plan ahead, especially in terms of when you're identifying your users and beneficiaries, especially, in Hong Kong, what we realize, whether it's business, whether it's from the business schools, from the sciences, health sciences, from the engineering, or even social sciences, there are lots of knowledge transfer and collaborations with different stakeholders and industries or governments, or as you say, quasi-governments, NGOs, and so forth. And I think through these engagements, I strongly advise all academics to actually, get their inputs in terms of how your research have actually benefits them in terms of whether it's operations, process, or product development early on. Try to actually, engage with them, not just in terms of your research, but also, of course, trying to engage with them and understanding, how your research have actually benefits them, and from that start collecting those evidence and those data. It requires not just, when you are being asked to write your impact case studies, then you actually approach them. It actually requires quite a planning process. As we say, from our second research question, as I say, it takes 7 years, from underpinning research to actually creating impact to your users and beneficiaries. And it requires probably before you write your impact case studies, 3 or 4 years before you start writing your impact case study, you should be starting to collect these evidence from your collaborators and your users and beneficiaries. You can't just do it, when you are being asked to write impact case studies and submit in 6 months or even in 12 months. You have to actually start early and start collecting those evidence, and also to actually capture those evidence as well. Obviously, of course, today it's not really a marketing and sales webinar, but I would say our proprietary software Impact Tracker actually do provide, do help academics to actually capture and, as you say, corroborate those evidence. Okay, so I guess that's the end of our webinar today. Hopefully it has been insightful, as we've also, of course, mentioned that the full report will be available for download tomorrow. And all attendees who have actually registered for our webinar will also be sent a copy of the report as well. Once again, thank you very much for your attendance. And if you have any further questions about the report, or even our research or any services that we provide, do feel free to reach out. Here is my email and also contact information. Thank you very much.